All righty. Okay,
Week
so
10.
here we go. Week 7 and 8 of the program. And so we'll just do a quick review of the things that we're going to be implementing into our schedule, the things that I'm going to be doing to facilitate this goal of lucid dreaming at least once a week. So we've got the wake back to bed technique, which we're going to try to do once or twice each week with the essential oil. And we talked about continuing to do the lucid dream meditation with the essential oil,
Right.
ideally at 3 times for every one time that we actually try a wake back to bed technique with the essential oil.
Right.
And so keeping up with that will be, a fair bit if we choose to do that, which I will, because again, I'm on the line, so and I really want this. So, and then we're going to start to do the reality checks and combine that with the prospective memory. So we'll take the time to look at a Monday through Sunday week and choose what will be our prospective memory triggers, what things that will happen in our world during that day to then check and see if we're dreaming. And then continuing with observation of mind and burning those habitual worries or areas of frustration or heaviness, anything that's dissipating our energy and tending to collect and stagnate us in our daily lives, because obviously we need energy to facilitate something new like this.
And remember, one of our paradigms is that, or an axiom is that, relax actually promotes focus, right? So if we're more relaxed, the more focused we can be.
Yeah.
So, if you're not coming up with something to burn in observation, it's not a big deal. Burn stuff that's happening at home, burn stuff that's happening at work, burn stuff that you didn't take care of 10 years ago and now it's sort of drifting around in your head here and there. Burn whatever is, not is stagnant, is not moving for you. And that will just give you that general movement, right? It's going to take away a lot of that stagnation and it's going to free you up. It's like these practices, I mean, they're odd, right? It's like it takes a lot of energy to do them. And they're not profoundly difficult. I mean, it's not doing like, some kind of horrible equations or something, right? But it's at the same time, it's like, if you're so bothered by your daily stuff, that's the stuff that I would focus on, because, if you can solve some of those problems and relax yourself into a place that's more moving, then you're going to be much more oriented toward, success and this, getting your lucid dreams under control. So, yeah, I mean, don't think that you have to have some dreaded, some horrible fear of something happening in the lucid dream, right? It could just be the normal everyday stuff, just the things that, the aggregate of aggravation through the week. I mean, that's a lot of times the way they would put it. It's like, we're here to burn off the stress and mental fatigue that we've acquired through the week, whatever that is. It wasn't just around practices or anything like that. It was around everything, right? Because the more free you are, the more likely you are to, move your energy where you want it to go. Stop being all bound up in, things that you feel like you have no control of at this point. So, just burn that stuff.
Right. And again,
Set yourself free.
again, those guided meditations for the burning meditation are in that first week of the program. So
right.
all, right there. And again, we had talked about this before, but you'd said that at the end of the burning meditation, just to take 5 or 10 minutes to relax and let your mind kind of relax and just be in that space. And a lot of times those are where we get kind of a clearer view of our different situations and, how we might be able to act or engage them differently to move them into something else.
True, because, it brings up a good point, which bears repeating again. Look, before I ever do anything, before I ever do any kind of practice, uh, I always state to myself why I'm doing it. What's my end goal here? I mean, it's so important to remember. It's such an uncommon thing for practitioners to do, and I never understood why. I don't understand if they just blew it off. They don't think it's that important. Getting right to the practice is more important. But it's like, you know, literally stating out loud, if you can, if you have the wherewithal to do it, just state it out loud. If I'm writing it down, if I'm putting it in my journal, I'm writing out in my journal what I'm doing there, what I'm doing today. Here's the time, here's the day. Anything else that's pertinent, but also what's pertinent is, why are you doing this? It's like, I need to know that when I put my ass in the chair, and do my technique, I have a goal for that. And not just an immediate goal, but a goal. Why am I doing that? I'm always starting with that why, right? Simon Sinek, right? Start with the why. So why are you doing this? And so, I'm constantly coming back to that. And that drives me through, because I know every time I do any technique, I'm different when I finish. I'm going to be a different person when I finish. That's an immediate goal. Did I have success with it to my, the way that I wanted to, or was it lacking a little, or lacking a lot, or maybe I just couldn't get it together today? Well, okay. But I mark all those things down. I want to be brutally honest with myself. But at the same time, it's like, but why was I, what was my motivation for doing this? Why was I here? What's my goal? Why? I mean, that's such an important thing. And I'm constantly stating what that is, so that I know, and I'm speaking it out loud. I'm speaking it forward, right? Like, here's my goal. And I'm doing this thing that might not be all that exciting right now to achieve that goal. And so, it's a stepping stone, right? And I'm constantly pushing my energy toward the center of the target. I don't want to just, blindly throw my darts all over the place, right? I really want to hit the center of the target each and every time. So everything that I do gets me closer and closer to that bullseye. That's important. So it's an understated technique. I don't even know if people have been told to do that. I rarely ever hear people, there are a few things that, in my career, which is, I would say relatively long by the standards of here. There are a few things that I'm just amazed that people don't do, within their practice. And that's one of them, it's so easy. And just remember to do it. There's another one of those things that your perspective memory, right? It's like, state why you're doing something before you start it, so that all that energy goes in the funnel toward the goal that you're trying to achieve. It just makes so much sense, and will make you so much more efficient and so much more effective at hitting the goal.
I think it's so good that you're reminding us of these things, because as you can see already, and as we progress through in the future of the program, it's like there are just so many techniques and many things that, we're going to implement over time. And techniques, there's so many techniques, period, but so many that can then be adapted to the purposes that we're going after right now. And so it's like, if we get lost in that without continually bringing ourselves back to this simple, it's like, because you say that a lot, the foundational techniques. And so it's good. I think it's important to point out that, like, when you say, the foundational stuff, the importance of the foundational stuff, it's like, those are the things that you're talking about. That's what you mean by that. Those simple things that get kind of lost in the mix a lot of the time when we're talking about the details of what we're imagining and what we're visualizing in the meditation, and on and on. So that's really good. And we have had people writing in as well, mentioning that, that even in this program, and that it's a lot of techniques. And so keeping up with it is can be challenging, and people can feel like it's maybe a little overwhelming. And so, but part of our job is to kind of deliver as much information and new techniques as we can, and so that people, I think for myself, I want people to feel like being a part of this program, that they're getting a lot of techniques, a lot of things that they maybe haven't heard before, or hearing them in a new way. And so, not, part of it is I want to feel like I'm really going after this goal of lucid dreaming in an aggressive way, because I really want to bring this online. And so again, the program is kind of designed around that. It's almost like the most aggressively that you could go after it. And also part of us delivering a maximal amount of value to these to everybody that's a part of the program. And so, but that doesn't mean that if you can't keep pace with my ridiculous desire to go after this, it's whatever, that it's not like, I don't know, I just,
it's not a failure. It's like people need to, it's that, again, everything's about balance, right? And all of our balance points are slightly different. I mean, we know, look, if you have enough life, if you have, let's say average, you're 30 years old. Okay, anybody with 30 years old of experience, life experience, should have a pretty good idea when they're slacking off. I mean, I wouldn't know that about you, it's like, so, and my experience has been that people, they really do know that about themselves. In fact, they tend to keep their toes to the fire more than I ever would push them. My pushing is a little bit more, precision pushing. It's like, if I see you avoiding something, I'm going to push you there. If I see you dodging something, I'm going to push you there. So, but that's from observation and doing it for for a long time. Let's not go how many years. So, but the idea is that, I think most people do know when they're slacking off. So, don't be so hard on yourself. It's like, in general, I'm talking to everybody, don't be so hard on it. This is a lot of material. This is more material than I would have done in 2 years. If I was really hunkering down and just starting out, I mean, I would have put, observation of mind into practice until I got up to 20 minutes of being able to do it every day for 20 minutes. And that would have probably taken me 2 or 3 months to do that before I would have moved on to the next thing. So, doing it at, let's say, 5-minute increments, like, a week at 5 minutes, and then a week at 10 minutes, and then a week at 15 minutes, and building up until I hit that maximum time, where I thought the optimal was, and then doing that for an extended period of time to really get the effect down. So there's that balance point, right? Where we're giving the information free, we're giving the information as much, and we're not holding anything back. We're putting it all out there in an order that I think is, a good progression, and some logic to it, and where I think the maximal effect will happen. But I'm not expecting anyone to, be able to do all of these techniques every day forever. It's like, it's not about that, right? It's about getting you into a certain stage, having an experience, then taking that experience, leveraging that emotion from that experience and parlaying that into more experience, right? Like, now there's some motivation there, right? It's not like you're not hearing Brian rah, rah, rah you, right? It's like, you've had the experience. There's nobody that has to do anything for you after that, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm going to do this now. Double my efforts. It's like, or switch up the techniques, but you should use the techniques, always build from strength, right? So use the techniques that give you the most, that give you the best results, right? If we're moving into another technique, you can try it, obviously, but you're going to have the techniques that are, let's say, that are just naturally good for you. right? I mean, I think those things that are foundational, that are important, are things like observation and burning, you know, some type of projective memory, you know, so you're pushing things forward, and because those are the primary triggers that are going to get you lucid in a dream. But, you know, I mean, are you going to have to do those techniques your whole life? No, why would you? I mean, when you have enough lucid dream experience, you're not going to need those. You're just going to say, I'm going to be lucid tonight, and you go and you do it. Right? So that's another thing that's off the shelf, right? Or maybe you hold it in your back pocket for something else, right? You can use the technique for more than one, you know, for more than just lucid dreaming, let's put it that way. There are multiple ways that you can use these techniques. So, but, you know, you don't have to overwhelm yourself by trying to do everything all the time. You're just going to fail because you're going to be exhausted. And that doesn't solve anything. You know, you want to be fresh. You want to have that joyful effort. You don't want to be slogging. I had this other teacher that said, I was doing, some kind of practices. At the time, they were kind of like devotional practices. So they weren't super exciting. I mean, they were kind of, they weren't my forte, let's put it that way. So, but, I wanted to keep them in the tradition, keep them in the practice. So I was doing them. And I remember, he wanted sort of an update, and I was like, well, I'm doing this and this. And, I was going through the thing. It took the practice took about an hour in the morning, and it had to be very early in the morning. I remember that. And then, late at night. And so, there wasn't a lot of time in between for other things. So, and it was a pretty complex practice. So anyway, and it was for an extended period of time, 42 days, I think. So, so once you commit to it, you do it, right? Or you don't, and that sort of falls apart. So, so I was doing it, right? And I said, oh, I don't feel like I'm putting enough into it, because I don't feel like I'm really getting that much out of it. And, his response was more like, it was, probably a little rougher than this, but it was basically something like, look, if you're the only time, that I want to really hear about any of that stuff is if you tell me, or you feel like you're dragging your ass to do this practice. If you feel like you're just like, ugh, like you're really just like moping, like, oh, I gotta go do that again. It's like, if that's the case, I want to hear about it, because then we have a problem. Then we have a real problem. There should be, and this was the first time I'd heard this, you should have joyful effort. Joyful effort, meaning that I go to, it's like, yeah, it's hard. There's some stoicism there. You're not making it harder than it has to be, but it's just hard to go and do something like that. But that's part of the point. It's a bit of a sacrifice, right? Is the goal, is the why worth the sacrifice of of putting in the effort? And, and I thought, oh, what an odd term. I never really thought about it before, but it struck me. And so ever since then, and that was, at least, I don't know, a decade and a half or more ago, I've always tried to hold that. I've always tried to keep that in my mind. And I've always tried to do that with everything that I do. And I mean, everything that I do, so not just my spiritual or energetic practices, but also my daily practices with my family, myself, my patients, all of that. So, joyful effort, right? You do your best, but you want to do it. You want the result that you're, that you're going after. So, and that sort of keeps that lightness in your heart about doing it, right?
So what if somebody is feeling like they're dragging their ass to do these practices? What would you tell them to do?
I'd say first, just, revert back to just the observation and just the burning. Burn off the stress and mental fatigue. go and then pick a single practice that you've gotten the most out of from this, and focus on that until it starts to, pull you out of the slump. So it's like, usually that's the way overwhelm feels, right? Or saturation sometimes. But I don't think that at this rate anybody would be saturated. That's a whole different sort of level of overwhelm, right? But
Yeah, the different.
overwhelm,
You're not talking. Because what we're talking about is kind of a mental attitude or an overwhelm of information. But when you're talking about saturation, that's like a technical, energetic term of like doing so much energy work that you've
you
saturated your
stagnate
ability
yourself,
to
right?
actually sustain the amount of transformation that you're producing within yourself and your mind and your subconscious. So, but again,
Right.
just because I know that for you, that's a term that you use. And I just wanted to make sure that people knew that. But
Right, right, exactly. So yeah, if you're feeling overwhelmed, I mean, and it's not like any of us don't feel that way once in a while, So if you get to that stage, it's like that's time. That's a good indicator to pull back. Like I said, most people that have any kind of life experience, they know when they're slacking. I don't worry about that. I don't worry about you not doing enough and slacking off. I worry about you being overwhelmed and doing too much. So, um, do the most that you can, the most that you can sacrifice for what you want. But everybody's going to be a little bit different from that. And if you're feeling like, oh, it's like I'm doing this and I felt pretty good, but now I've had to do these extra things. Maybe the kids are sick and you're up half the night or whatever. It's like, okay, don't beat yourself into oblivion after that. It's like, you have legitimate things that come up, right? It's like you'll get back to your regular routines. So, in that case, you pull it back a little bit and say, okay, so for today, I'm just going to do the burning. I just need to get rid of this so I don't get sick, or, so that this doesn't become overwhelming for me, or whatever it is, right? Or you just do the observation, make your notes and then put it aside. Don't worry about it. It's like you pull it back to those things that are most comfortable for you. So you keep the energy moving, but there's not as much, you don't need as much energy or force to make it happen, right? So there's a little bit more flow there, and that's what we're always trying to achieve. It's like everybody that I can think of that, is a professional athlete, and I'm not a big sports guy, but I can appreciate their prowess. They have that, it just looks effortless. I mean, the real superstars, right? It's like no matter what they do, it's like you just feel this flow, right? It's like they're connected to something else. And that's what I usually feel like, that I would want to give to everyone that practices this, in any way. It's like find that perfect balance that puts you in that flow state. That's going to be, and that's that real fine line between, hard line focus and concentration and relaxation, right? Letting everything go and being in that zone. That's that optimal place. And we're constantly shifting back and forth around it till we find that slot. And then once we find it, you anchor that in by getting back there over and over again. That becomes your natural state, and that will carry into your regular daily life. And there's nothing better than that. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for guiding us into these next 2 weeks of the program and
into the flow.
Into the flow, man. It's awesome. And we'll be checking in with you guys in the coaching call for this week. And I look forward to letting you know how it's going for me. So, and
Cool.
Hope it's going well for you too. All right. We'll wrap it up. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you soon.